All right, folks, welcome back for the 100th episode of the Soul Driven Podcast. What's up? Now is when I really need a bunch of like background music cheering. Anyway, I am so excited to have you with us today. So, in the midst of thinking about what I could do to celebrate this 100th episode, which to me is such a major accomplishment, and I thought long and hard, and it was just like, you know what? I feel like it's time to flip the mic around and share myself with you in a way that I haven't before. And so I have my partner here, Carlos Fonseca, who you'll be meeting in just a moment. What's
Hello,
up, Carlos?
what's up? Woo!
And he is here to interview me. So he has compiled questions. I don't know what they are. I'm very nervous about that, but also know that I'm in good hands because one of the reasons that we are here together today is because when I first met him, he asked me such good questions about myself, which, ladies, you know what I mean. When you meet a guy and he's asking you lots of really good questions, you're like, whoa, okay, this is different. I'm liking this. So I know that Carlos is going to be a great host, and I am excited and thankful to have him interviewing me. So basically, I'm just going to step back and let him take over. And yeah, let's do the thing.
Let's do it. Well, welcome to the Soul Driven Podcast. I am your host for today, Carlos Fonseca. How are you doing, Anna?
I'm good, Carlos. How are you?
I'm doing good. How does it feel to be a guest on your own show?
Well, it's a little nerve-wracking because, of course, I don't know what questions you're going to ask me, and my controlling impetus wants to be like, wait, are we? What about this? And what about this? And what about this? And so I'm having to take deep breaths and just be like, okay, I can let go. All is well.
Yeah, well, now you know what it feels like for your guests whenever they come in and have an interview with you. So I think that's a good positive thing to be in the interviewee seat.
For sure, for sure. Anytime that I've been in a guest on someone else's podcast, it is definitely well, I can be a little bit nervous for sure, but there's something about this in particular that is additionally so, and I don't know what it is, but it's all good.
Yeah, but no, I am super excited that we made it to the 100th episode. I know that it's been more than a year since you started this journey. So, how does that feel on your end to be recording the 100th episode?
Yeah, so this is also like right around our 2-year mark, which is insane. But you have been a part of this journey from even before I started recording the episode back. I'm sure you remember the night when we were driving to Boone to see your family, and I was like, we were going through all the different names that might fit for the podcast. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, you have been along this entire ride with me, and certainly I would say my number one supporter, listening to episodes again and again, giving me feedback, just being really supportive in the process. So when you said like we, I was like, yes, this has been a we thing because you've been with me throughout the whole ride, but it feels really good. It's it's exciting. I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for what's to come. And I'm just so thankful that I didn't give up because there were so many moments when I wanted to. But I am very grateful for this podcast, extremely grateful for the listeners, so thankful for the people that I get to interview and geek out with. And yeah, excited for what's to come in the next 100.
Yeah, no, I've definitely lived that firsthand, how challenging it can be to definitely have your own podcast and all the ups and downs that come with that. So I'm definitely very happy for you that we are here recording the 100th episode. and that you also did not give up, because you've been bringing a lot of good into the world, just connecting your audience with all your guests, with all your wisdom. And yes, it would be a shame if that did not continue. So I am super excited to be here and to be recording this 100th episode. And I'm super excited to be doing the interview because, yeah, I consider myself a curious person and I do ask a lot of questions. So it's a perfect hat for me. And speaking of questions, one of your most famous questions that you ask your guests is, what makes you soul driven? So I want to ask that to you.
Yeah. What makes me soul driven? Um, it's been interesting over the past 2 years to hear the different responses that have come from the amazing guests that I've had on the show. And, I think it just really comes down to what I feel like several have shared the last couple of interviews that I've had. It's just that this is just who I am. This is just the type of person I am. And when I came up with the name Soul Driven, when we came up with it, really batting things back and forth, I didn't realize how perfect it was. Like I'm equal parts soul and equal parts driven because I'm such a spiritual person and I've always been someone who needed to feed my soul and go deeper and seek more. But at the same time, I'm like this big business head and I'm totally in the business world and I'm super ambitious and often get put in the role of leader. And so, really combining those two has been something that's, of course, been coming together in the midst of the journey of this podcast. But I've always been soul driven. It's just who I am. I'm equal parts both. And it's what I bring to the podcast, it's what I bring to the work that I do, and certainly what I intend to continue doing as I move forward on my journey into what is to come.
Yeah, no, great answer. I think it's really cool that you are able to combine both of those different aspects. And I feel like it's something that a lot of people currently can connect with, of having the business side and the spiritual side and kind of connecting both of those two to form one. So yeah, I can
Yeah.
definitely share those feelings.
Well, the thing is that I'm all about the spiritual and I'm all about the experiences. I'm all about those really magical moments. But if I can't ground it into the practical and use it in my everyday, then I really don't have any use for it. And so, I think that that's where people get lost and where people get kind of caught up when it comes to spirituality is like they're also wanting to know, like, how can I make this practical? How can I utilize this in my life? And what can I do with it? And so that's certainly something that I try to not only teach in my solo episodes, but the folks that I bring on the podcast are doing this naturally, and so let's look at their examples of the life that they've lived and how they've given back and the ways that they've lived from their soul, yet made a business out of it, made a living out of it, whatever the case may be, and see like what kind of inspiration we can find in that area, because I think we need both because we are here on this 3D planet and we have to live here, we have to pay bills, we have to take care of our bodies, we have to do things that require us to be human. And yet at the same time, we have this soul inside of us that wants to be fulfilled and satisfied and alive. And it needs to be fed as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned your guests. Some of my favorite episodes are when you bring your guests that are living a soul-driven life. And the last one you had was Tap with Brad, and I can definitely see him being soul-driven and living a soul-driven life, which is definitely an inspiration. And I think that is also the ultimate goal for everyone to arrive at that place in their life. And I am certainly on that journey. I know you are on that journey as well. But speaking of journeys, I thought it would be really cool for your audience to kind of learn more about your story of how you used to be a marketer, used to own a marketing business for many years, and how you transitioned to having a spiritual business. I think it'll be very interesting to hear about that story.
Yeah, well, it wasn't pretty. It was painful. Yes. So for those who don't know, I had a marketing agency for over a decade. Marketing is something that always came naturally to me. I love psychology. I love understanding what makes people tick, what brings them alive. And I think that there's a real part of me that enjoys sales. And I should say sales specifically that are focused on things that I'm really passionate about. So when I was a kid, I remember my mom saying to me once, like, oh my gosh, you would just be an incredible marketer. And I thought, like, okay, whatever. But it was so funny because when I went back to college after many years of traveling and not going the traditional route, I went back to college as an adult, went to a community college, and then transferred to UNC Chapel Hill into the journalism program. I've always been a writer, and that was what I wanted to do. But the track that I took in the J school, is what they called it, was multimedia. And I learned about graphics and making videos. And I remember my first day of class, my like legendary professor, Don, and I'm so bad with names, so I'm not going to remember his last name, but he was like, you need to get a Twitter and a blog. And I was like, what the heck is a Twitter? This was 2009. And but I followed his advice. I had already had a blog for years. I mean, I've always been a writer. And when I traveled, I often kept up and shared what it was I was experiencing. But I got a Twitter and being on social media in the midst of being back in college because I was an adult. And so I couldn't participate in a lot of the things that other people could do. And social media, Twitter specifically, became this way for me to like get to know other professionals who were doing things within the journalism space, which just kind of naturally extended out to creators, so designers, and then marketers. And you know, while I was in school, like I landed this internship with a TV network all because of my Twitter and my blog. I didn't even meet anyone. I went through the whole hiring process, didn't even meet someone until the first day because they loved my work that much. And then I got like a paid internship with UNC bands. And by the time I graduated, I was just like, man, I really love this because I was helping local business owners and their marketing. I've always been very passionate about seeing small business owners do well because I grew up in a family of small business owners. And so I have a really sweet spot for them. But I got a job at a marketing agency, actually as a designer in New York, and quickly ended up being like leading the marketing team because I had really been learning. Pinterest had come to the forefront. I was one of their beta testers. And in this agency, I was really the one like telling the marketing team, like, hey, you guys should be doing this, and there are these important things. Unfortunately, I got fired from that job. And it was all good. It was meant to be. But I kind of decided at that point because I was 30 and it was just like, you know what? I'm gonna I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go for this. I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. I always knew that I would work for myself at some point in time because of my temperament, but I didn't know when. And I decided to go for it. So I dove in. The first year was insanely hard, really, really difficult. I had no idea what I was doing, but I just kept on. And 2 years in, I ended up relaunching with a full team in 2014, and and then carried on. And so we've worked with, clients worldwide, internationally. I loved doing marketing. But in about 2016, like, I just realized it wasn't feeding my soul. And I really started looking for other things, which eventually led me to starting a retail business where I put all of my love and passion in, kind of found a bit of my purpose. And unfortunately had to shut down that business because we were just really ahead of our time, and it just wasn't ready yet. But I had given it my all and stepped back into my agency full time, which I had never shut it down. I had just we had stopped bringing on new clients, and over the past several years, it's just been, shutting that business down really set me off on this insane path, this metaphysical awakening, as I would call, because I've always been very spiritual. I was born into this life knowing God, but this awakening was something else. Both combined with the pain that I felt from having to shut down this retail business, where because I'd finally found a part of my purpose in it. And that was so huge for me. But to go back to the 9 to 5, to the making money to pay bills, it was hard. And that pain, coupled with the fact that I decided to take a break and to stop drinking, was just huge. Alcohol was my favorite numbing agent. And I wasn't an alcoholic, but I definitely had an unhealthy relationship with alcohol. And this whole metaphysical awakening, as what I called it, started at the beginning of 2019. And it was just crazy what happened and has happened since then. In the midst of that time, over the next year, I started waking up in so many different ways. Soul driven idea was birthed during that year in the midst of it. Soul Driven started at the very beginning of 2020, actually March, right before the lockdown. But in that, I found the Akashic Records. I found different modalities that really spoke to me and brought me awake in different ways. And on that journey, I was guided to start doing things that I hadn't intended, doing readings for other people, doing just stepping out of my boundaries. And then, well, first, of course, it was doing readings for the podcast and then for people. And then they wanted me to do paid readings. And they were showing me what my life was going to be turning into in regards to this path of being a spiritual guide, and really utilizing my podcast to help share my voice, help share the voices of others. And yeah, it's a huge story. And I can share that, like I said, it's been very painful, that shift from marketer to the spiritual world, because I was very comfortable showing up at networking events and being around people and being like, yeah, I own a marketing agency and I'm a marketer. I think there was always a part of me that wanted to be normal, that wanted to fit in, because I knew how much I didn't fit in. And so I really had attached myself to that identity. And I had no idea how to attach myself to a spiritual guide type identity. I mean, it's very trendy now, and that's cool, but I was, I fought in tantrums. But I'm so thankful that I gave in and followed my guidance and went through those painful times. And here we sit today. So much to be grateful for and to celebrate.
Yeah, no, I agree. Thank you for sharing that story. As you were sharing it, I could just kind of picture all those times, different years leading up to this point, and just how everything kind of worked itself out. And as you were sharing that as well, I was just kind of thinking how it is quite a transition from being a marketer to a spiritual guide. But the cool thing is that everything that you learn as a marketer and with your marketing business, you can still apply today with your current businesses now and moving forward. And I'm sure you've been using a lot of that stuff in the last few years. So everything happens for for a reason, as you say as
Absolutely.
well. Everything happens for our benefit. So yeah, that was just part of your journey. And in the last, I would say probably few months, maybe 6 months to a year, I've seen that shift from you being in your marketing agency to working with your spiritual guide business, and how much in tune you are with that, how much more aligned you are with that, and much happier. And it seems that you are truly stepping into that soul driven life. So that's been very cool for my end to notice.
Yeah, yeah, it's been quite the journey, and you've certainly had front row seats to to all the tough times, to all the tears cried, to all the tantruming on my end of watching, because in the midst of really being led into this new life, my old life wasn't working anymore. I couldn't get clients the way I always had. I wasn't connecting the way I always had through marketing. Things weren't flowing seamlessly the way they always had. And it was the universe being like, nah, girl, you're going in another direction now. This isn't meant for you anymore. But I was holding on so tight. And, I think that is certainly something that a lot of us go through. I know that with my clients, um, they have a hunger, they have a thirst for something else, but they're very attached to their material jobs, the things that make us money, that make us feel secure, that are a part of our identity. And it's a very difficult step out, um, but man, the universe honors the bold. And when we step out, the universe meets us. So again, this has been a 2-year journey. And I'm finally on the other end of it. Even though there are still plenty of of moments where it's like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Um, but I'm just so grateful that I have continued to move forward and continued to believe and continued to push onward, even when all the signs were like, uh, "You're crazy. This is your third business, and yeah, this is." When all the voices in my head, I should say, were telling me to run in the other direction, you know.
Yeah. But I'm sure it's been so much worth it, or it's been worth it, to have gone through all that and be in the position that you're in now.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, I mean, the thing is, um, I talk about this a little bit. I've talked about this a little bit on the podcast. I talk about this a lot with clients, but there's a difference between our fated path and our soul path. And the fated path was my marketing agency, and the fated path, we can find happiness. I found happiness. I found great success. I've enjoyed so much of the work that I did, but it didn't fulfill me. And to jump from the fated path to the soul path, it takes a lot of bravery. But when we get to the soul path, I mean, like, I'm more fulfilled than I've ever been. And the ways in which I can give and serve of myself, I've never would have been able to do through marketing. And that's not to say another marketer couldn't do that. If that's what's meant for them, perfect. But for me, there was something more that my soul wanted and needed. And there's just no comparison, between the two.
Yeah, no, I can definitely understand that. And I would agree with that for sure. Are you able to kind of explain the differences in terms of feeling within yourself when you were a marketer versus now? Are you able to kind of share the difference of how that felt? If that makes sense?
Yeah, for sure. So, in my marketing life, I was an influencer, I was well known. Uh, we were very successful as an agency. I had incredible guys on my team, incredible people that I worked with, amazing clients. And, I was very financially successful. And I remember once, I was just telling you this the other day, like I remember once looking at my bank account and it had way more money than I think I would have ever thought would be in my bank account. And yet I just looked at it and it was kind of like, huh, you know? And we hear these stories often about people who've reached incredible success and are still unhappy. They're unfulfilled. And that was the thing for me. It was like I loved what I was doing, but it felt empty. I got tired of just, making money for people who didn't care that we wanted to build relationships with their clients, who didn't care that we felt it was really important to develop trust with their audience. People who just wanted the bottom line met, wanted to make money. And that transitioned for me when I started working like with one-on-one solopreneurs. That really helped to to make me more fulfilled, but it still wasn't, there was like, I wasn't able to fully give of myself the way I am now. I mean, it is so vulnerable to show up and to read the Akashic Records for someone. I don't know if they're going to think I'm crazy. I am channeling through information for them that could be totally wrong. I don't know. I am trusting in the universe. You know what I mean? It's a very vulnerable thing to do. And I've obviously got enough experience under my belt with that now that I feel confident in what I do. But it still is, the way that I'm able to work with people, the way that people bring themselves to me as well, the problems that they bring, I would have never gotten a chance to even help folks with these things if I had stayed in marketing. And what I mean by that specifically is helping people uncover like what their sole purpose is, helping people uncover why it was one of their parents was so abusive, or why it is that their relationship is falling apart, or why it is that they can't find financial success in their life. Like so many different things. People come and I mean, tears happen in almost every session. And when they start crying, then I start crying, and it's a beautiful moment of synergy between the two of us because we both show up raw and open and ready to heal. And that's what it's about, is healing. And that's something that to me, it's always such an honor to walk away from my Akashic record readings, realizing that like, whoa, I was just a part of that. The mother finally being able to see why it is that she isn't close with her son, what happened in that relationship between them, or someone understanding why it was they had to lose a parent when they were really young that they really loved, and it's broken their heart their entire life. I mean, there's just so much, and it's such an honor, such an insane gift to be able to be a part of it. So all the success in the world, all of the little like mini fame that I got from my marketing influencer days, like none of that compares to being able to help and serve in this way.
Yeah, just all that you share with the way you feel when it comes to helping your clients and helping them become more soul or have a better idea of what they really their sole purpose, right? Yeah, and going deep. It seems like you really get to go deep with your clients and connect emotionally and yeah, be raw and let all the emotions flow. And that in itself just sounds very meaningful, and it really comes across that you can really feel like you're making an impact when you have those conversations, when you're seeing your clients have an impact. So I'm just happy for you that you are in this position, because I feel like that's what everyone wants to feel, like they're making an authentic impact in the world and in their clients' life, and you're living it. And yeah, you've definitely had to fight hard to get to this point, but it's really cool to see all this start to flourish. And I'm excited to see what will continue to happen, this year and all the years ahead. So yeah, very happy to see you in the current position that you're in.
Same. Yeah, I mean, the
And
thing is like, I wanted to share the struggle because I think that's such an important part of anybody's story, right? It's like this didn't happen overnight and it wasn't easy. And it's still, it's still unfolding. It's not like I've made it. I still have things to overcome and I still have things to work on. And I'm still building a business and all of those things. I'm in the trenches with everyone else. But yeah, I mean, I certainly I want to inspire people to live from their soul, to connect with their spirituality, to know that there's more for them than what we've been told, which is what I was always looking for. I call it the magic, right? Like as a kid would think like, oh, I want the magic. Like, where's the magic? And I always knew that there was more. And now that I know that there's more and I can help other people find their more, like, yes, 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 you know.
yeah, no, I love learning about all your different stories of all your clients that you're helping, and the things that you are helping them out with, what you're bringing out that's been, locked up for so long. I feel like that just really helps them break free, and really start living their life and removing those roadblocks so they can become soul driven. So yeah, that's been very cool to witness in the last few months and 6 months to a year, I would say. And in the midst of that time, apart from shifting from being a marketer to a spiritual guide, in the midst of all that, you also started this podcast. So I also thought it would be cool to share with your audience a little bit about the story of how this podcast came to be. And more specifically, and you already touched on it, but more specifically, how did you come up with the soul driven name as well?
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is I've wanted to have a podcast for years. And it's funny because like back in my marketing days, I would get interviewed by other people and they were like, Anna, you would be a great podcast host. And I was like, yeah, it sounds awesome, but like I know how much work it is and nah. Um, because too, like I really wanted to, if I was going to do a podcast, I wanted to make sure that my theme, my focus was different. And I honestly wasn't a huge podcast person. Like I was always like one of the one of the weirdos, I guess, in my marketing group who was like not really into podcasts. And then in the midst of like really, I think it's like I started listening to podcasts in 2016, 2017, but then and loving them. And then at the very beginning of 2019, and I think really before 2018, that kind of exploded with my metaphysical awakening, and I listened to so many podcasts and I was just hungry, hungry, hungry. And the one thing I didn't see was a podcast that was really focused on what I focus on, with this podcast, which is exploring that intersection between living a soulful and spiritual life in a driven and ambitious world, right? That equal part of like spiritual and practical. And there are more podcasts, like I see podcasts now who have a little bit more of that focus. But as soon as I realized that, it was like, boom, this is it. This is what I want to do. And I started really thinking about it and thinking about how I wanted to do it. And I knew that like I was just gonna throw it out there. It was gonna be raw because I'm someone that if it's going to like if there's going to be tons of details, like I won't do it. So I knew right away I had to like have help in order to do this because I wanted to be able to just show up and record and do that bit and then pass it off. And someone else could edit it and handle those things so that I could really focus on creating because that's my strength. That's my sweet spot. Um, and yeah, like the soldier from the name, of course, like I was sharing with you, I had a long list of names that night in the car, and it was just like, oh my gosh, which one? And Soul Driven to me just, like at first it felt a little bit awkward, but the more I thought about it, the more like, the universe was just like showing me how perfectly aligned it was. And it was just like, yes, this is it. Um, so we launched at the very beginning of March. I think it was actually March, right in the middle of March. So yeah, right around this exact time, 2 years ago, right before lockdown hit. And it was so funny because I had this very like I had an idea of how, what I was going to be focusing on with my podcast. And if you go back and listen to the early days, like you'll see the difference. Um, and it shifted very quick because as soon as we went into lockdown, all of my ideas that I had for podcast topics and episodes went out the door. I started being led to speak about things that I felt were more relevant for where we were at. I wanted to encourage people. I wanted to help motivate them. I wanted to help remind them of what's important in the midst of everything that was going on. And I wanted to have people on the podcast who would help me do that, who would also help inspire and encourage. I wanted to be a source of light for people in the midst of all of that. So, and the thing is like when I launched this podcast, like I didn't really know if I was going to keep it, if I was going to keep doing it, if I was, going to really fully commit to it. I just thought, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot and we'll see what happens. And it really wasn't until the end of like, I would say the last quarter of 2021. Actually, no, I think it was middle of the summer last year in 2021. And I realized that I really loved doing the podcast and that I was ready to really start fully committing to it. But I can't say that I honestly did until like the end of 2021. And then it was kind of like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to really start putting my marketing skills to work. I'm ready to expand. I'm ready to do different things. Because I got to tell you, like, producing a podcast is hard. It's so hard. I mean, like, I think the first 6 months, every episode, there was an issue, every single one. And whether it was in how I was recording it or whatever the case may be, I mean, oh my gosh, they used to take me so much time.
Mm-hmm.
It is not an easy process. And that's why a lot of people end up quitting. You see so many podcasts. I think it's like 80% or something like that of folks who start podcasts like quit before their first like 25 episodes or something. And that's because it's really hard. It's a lot of work. But I would just kind of laugh about it. It was like, okay, this week's problem, and kind of continue on. So yeah, here we are 2 years later, and I'm excited.
Yeah, that's been quite a journey in itself as well. And, I've obviously witnessed that firsthand from the beginning to now to, from when I said to you, soul driven, you're like, yes, it just clicked. So yeah, it's been cool to be part of the journey from the beginning, with the name and everything. And yeah, I can definitely picture that moment in the car when we were driving and we're just playing around with the names and how it just kind of clicked at first. And yeah, I think that was the right choice. I love just the name of it, Soul Driven.
Yeah, it's a beautiful name. I'm really thankful for it.
Yes. And then with both the spiritual guide and the podcast, I just think that they really complement each other really well as well. And it seems like a lot of fun. I mean, I'm having a little bit of fun being a host right now. I was thinking that maybe in the future we could co-host some episodes together as well. Who knows?
Yeah, we can definitely do some podcasts together. The thing is, it's funny because you like mentioning like the spiritual guide and like the soul driven thing, and it was so awkward for me for like the first year um to talk about what I did on the podcast because I was in this shift in this transition. And it was like I was still doing marketing, but I that's not where my heart was anymore at all. Like I had, really been diving into the metaphysical, to the modalities, the Akashic Records, and so it was very difficult to know how to identify myself and how to share myself. And so I think it was actually only until the beginning of 2021 when I came back after the New Year break, I finally said, okay, I'm gonna own this name, this title. And I was so scared because it was like, oh my gosh, what does this even mean? Because I was still in a bit of tantruming with the universe at that time about the direction that I was going. Because it wasn't until February 2021 when I finally gave in and I was like, okay, fine. I'm going to put readings on my website and I'm not going to advertise it. I'm not doing anything. If this is what you want, you gotta make it happen. You gotta, you know, turn the knob on. And they did, and they so did. Um, and they gave me a really beautiful taste of what that was about and what that life could look like and the difference that I could make and the things that I could do. But I didn't have the self-confidence to really back that up. And I didn't have the mindset and I hadn't fully committed. And so, 2022 was such a bumpy road. Um, and it really wasn't until November 2021 on my birthday when I turned 40. And I was just like, okay, what am I going to do? Because it was really like I need to make a decision, about fully committing. And I thought like, where do I want to be when I get to 50? Because the way
Mhm.
I've always viewed it is, with age and getting older is that 40 is just getting started. And it's really ironic slash funny slash totally meant to be that here I am at 40 and I really do feel like I'm just getting started in the best of ways. Like this is going to be my best life moving forward. But I knew that I had to give it, I had to give it a shot. So now I love what I have seen. It's taken so much time. It's really taken, I think, the full last 2 years for me to start seeing these things like the podcast and the work that I'm doing now, like really coming together and the brand that it's going to create and the things that I'm going to do. Now because I'm teaching and like all of these different things. And it's just like, whoa, when I kind of take a step back, I'm just like, okay, universe, like you knew this all the time, didn't you?
Mhm, mhm.
You could have
Yeah,
let me
yeah,
know.
yeah. As you're sharing that, it just reminds me of something my cousin Alejandra shared with me that I've shared with you in the past, because she has her own business and she's pretty successful with it. And I was talking to her just, I was sharing with her some of my business ideas and that I wanted to get started. And that's what she recommended, just to get started. And once you get started, everything works itself out. And that's basically what's been happening with you. And something that's very important to keep in mind is to not give up, to keep pushing forward. And as you keep pushing forward, then more things continue to work themselves out. And one of those things that I really noticed you step into is the Akashic Records, that has really become a specialty of yours and within your spiritual practice. So I think it would be interesting to learn, why do you think that is such a primary focus within your spiritual practice?
Yeah, I kind of get gooey these days when I think about my feelings for the Akashic Records. A little teary. Um, in the best of ways. They have really started. They've always been so incredible, but this week specifically, they have really started opening up and just telling me how proud of me that they are. and 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 sharing with me how much they love me, and considering that the Akashic Records like are love, to have someone, have something, have the spiritual world like that share that with you is just, it's, it's all encompassing. So, in the midst of my metaphysical awakening in 2019, I came across these names, the Akashic Records, and it felt like home. It felt like the world stopped, like one of those like cinematic movie moments. Um, and I didn't know why. I researched them. I looked into what they were, and I couldn't fully wrap my head around it. And I just thought like, okay, cool. Like you got to be some kind of like Disney wizard or like super psychic or like whatever, like this is okay. Not, I can't do this. But it kept popping up, kept popping up, kept popping up. And eventually it was so random because I was on Facebook one day and I never pay attention to ads, but there was this ad for Linda Howe's How to Read the Akashic Records book. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll read it. I'll check it out. That book arrived on a Saturday morning, and by that afternoon, I'd read 3/4 of it. I just inhaled it, and the book said a couple of times, like, if you're reading this, it's for a purpose. You're meant to be reading this. You're meant to be doing this, which is really something I needed to hear. And then, like, that Monday when you went to work and I had the house to myself, I went into the records for the first time. And it changed my life. It completely changed my life. Everything that has happened over the last couple of years is because I reconnected with something that I've always been connected to. Shortly after I found the records and started reading them for myself, I booked a session with another reader so that I could experience that from the other end. And that was one of the questions that I had for her, was like, why the Akashic Records? Why me? Like, what's supposed to happen here? And she shared with me that this is something I've been doing for lifetimes and would play a very big role in this lifetime. And, what has happened over the past 2 years, I recorded the podcast, recently, the 5 changes, or the 5 ways my life has changed since I started reading the Akashic, or something like that. That really goes into it in depth for those who want to check it out. But suffice it to say that I believe the Akashic Records are insanely powerful and can help anyone, not only with finding your way, finding your purpose, but healing. I've joked before that I'm such a better person and a nicer person because of the Akashic Records, because they are love, and spending time in that energy, you can't help but also become more loving, more compassionate, more kind, more aware. Being able to see, in client readings, why people do the things that they do, being able to come to understand that there are no bad people, it's not a thing. We all come here with a purpose. And not only do I love being able to access the Akashic Records for my personal self, which, I never came to them with any idea of reading for others, much less teaching or anything of that nature. I was just curious, and I read that they were healing and I needed help. And so I surrendered to that, and I continued surrendering to that, and I continued showing up and practicing and learning and being taught and taking in. And it's so beautiful because, here I am, like I mentioned before, like I started out just wanting to read for me, and then they were like, oh, read for the podcast. And then it was like they really started pushing me to start reading for other people. And then it was like, okay, now you're going to start charging. And now it's teaching. And, the thing is my ego loves being the solution, that I do. I love having all the answers. But the truth is that I want to empower other people to have access to the records. I want to introduce them to this for themselves so that they too can make these changes in their life in whatever way suits them. Not everyone's path is going to look like mine, but I mean, like Akashic record readers, they span the gamut. I mean, like creators, lawyers, psychologists. I mean, you don't have to be a spiritual guide to utilize the Akashic records in your life, in your work, whatever the case may be. But I always, as a kid, they always say like the thing that you really want to do is what you did when you were a kid. And I always used to think like, oh my gosh, what did I want to do? What did I want to do? And I was one of these kids that wanted to do a lot of things. So that was kind of difficult. But what I realized is I always wanted to be a teacher. Like that was always for me. I used to take home all my like teachers discarded materials and like subject my poor friends to playing class with me when they would come over. I taught my siblings, I loved that. And it wasn't really until I got old enough to understand the politics of being in the public, in the teaching system, and just kind of knew that wasn't for me. So it was something that I had really put off, forgotten, set aside. And here I am. And the Akashic Records now are helping me step into a lifelong dream. So they're very special to me.
Yeah, me personally, I'm still learning about the Akashic records. And when you first started talking to me, like, yeah, just I had no idea.
Akash, what?
Akash, what? Records? There's a book? What? So, yeah, I've been also been part of that journey with the Akashic records. I've also learned to really appreciate the records because I think they bring a lot of wisdom about anything. I think that everyone should have their records read. And I think that is such a taboo thing still in our society that a lot of people don't even know that it exists. And that was me. And I'm definitely thankful that I'm associated with you because I've been able to learn about them. And you've read my records a few times and they've shared a lot of wisdom. And I'm just happy that you're really stepping into this role to read people's records because I think at least everyone should have them read at least once because of the power that they can bring into their lives and what they can unlock and remove all those roadblocks so people can really step into their soul driven life. So just seeing you light up as you're talking about them definitely makes me feel that you're in your happy place, that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And speaking of modalities like the Akashic records, obviously that's been very helpful in your life, but I wanted to ask you what other modalities have been helpful in your life that you would recommend people, your audience, to look into as well.
Yeah, so I'm also a Holy Fire Reiki practitioner, and I love Reiki. I joke with my clients that like Reiki is the gateway drug. Once you kind of open yourself up to energy, then it just continues from there. And folks who like go through their first awakening are just diving in and trying out all different kinds of modalities. And if that's you, I just encourage it. I've had a couple of clients over the past 2 weeks who are really in that space, and they're like, like, oh no, I got to focus. And I'm like, no, have fun, learn, go, see what resonates with you, and that's certainly something that I really want to encourage with the podcast as well, and why I bring folks on who offer so many different modalities, because, the thing is the Akashic records are, they're my main thing, and they'll probably likely always be like one of my main things, but different things resonate with different people, and so the Akashic records may not resonate with someone else, and that's totally cool. But there's other things out there for you. And when you allow yourself to learn and be open to things and try and have fun and take a training and do those different things, then you can find out what resonates with you. Um, my other really big thing, and it's been beautiful to see this be popping back up in my practice, is human design. And when I first started learning human design back in 2019, I was just blown away at how I could utilize it with my marketing clients back then, in regards to helping me to understand them, helping them to build their brands, those sorts of things. And now I utilize it with my coaching clients. And I did like a fun special back for February, where anyone who booked a session, I shared with them what their intuitive gifts were in human design, which I opened up this whole, I had done readings back in the very beginning, but I had stepped away for that from a while because I really wanted to focus on the Akashic records. But it's been so much fun to start booking human design sessions and really just being able to kind of mix it up, and to see people really get to understand themselves in such a new way. So real quick, human design is a mix of astrology, Vedic principles, the I Ching, and Kabbalah, and it maps out how energy moves in your body. And if you know that everything is energy, then you can understand how powerful this is. This helps us to fully get to understand ourselves, understand how we operate in the world, understand how we can best take advantage of the world around us. The things that we need to do so that we can actually get in flow and open ourselves up to abundance on every level. It's such a powerful tool. And so I think for me, like those, those are really my favorites. And of course, I'm so obsessed with astrology. It's ridiculous. I I think I've gotten like 2 more books in just the last week or two. You've seen them come in. Um, I love astrology. I've been learning astrology since I was a kid. One of my friends was laughing at me the other day because she's in like a astrology program, and I was like, one of these days, I'm gonna feel ready to start stepping out. But astrology is such a science, and I feel like it's so huge that I'm just not to that place yet. But it's what I spend the majority of my free time learning about. And man, I'm always like researching, like whenever I hear a podcast about someone who has done something really incredible, like I'm looking up their astrology chart. I love forecasting out. Yeah, I think that, I'm a manifesting generator in the human design, which means that I am very multi-passionate in my interests and in my learning buckets, if you will. And so that's fully aligned for me to kind of be all over the place in a sense. But I'm a lifelong learner. I'm always going to want to learn, always want to grow and stretch. I don't think that you can ever know all of anything. And that's what gets me really excited. So yeah, a lot.
Yeah, I've personally experienced both of those modalities myself from you. And the one that really surprised me was Reiki, because I had, in my past, I had ankle injury, knee injury that really messed up my back, and I had surgery on both of those places that really didn't allow me to continue to improve my back until after the fact. I was healed and up and going again. And when you did Reiki for me the first time, it just blew my mind how much of a difference it made, and just how the energy healing works. And soon after that, I started telling people about it because I just couldn't believe it. It's really cool on how it helped me improve my back so much more than all the previous times that I did other things such as going to the chiropractor, doing yoga. That stuff was helping, but Reiki, I could really feel the difference, and I could really feel it really fast. So I've definitely enjoyed experiencing that, and in fact, I need another session here soon.
I was
And
waiting for it.
it's been a while since I've had one, so we need to book one tomorrow. And then same with the human design. I've really enjoyed learning about the human design, and when you have my chart up and you kind of tell me this and that, I think it's really cool how the human design can help you make sense of who you are. I feel like a lot of people are still getting to know who they are, different aspects of their personality, or why they do what they do. And the human design, I think, does a really good job making sense out of it and kind of explaining why.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you are also incorporating that within your spiritual guide, because a lot of people need that as well, and will certainly benefit and have been benefiting from those two modalities.
Yeah. Well, the thing is with the human design, while I really love working with individuals, something that I'm really passionate about, and um, I not only want to start doing workshops for this, but working one on one with parents for their children for better understanding. You know, the thing about human design is that it's really about breaking down all of the conditioning that we have grown up in and the ways in which we've been taught how to live in the world. And when I first started learning about human design, I just remember having so many moments where I was like, man, if my parents had known this, if my parents had known this. Um, and then from seeing my nephew, who is also a third line, like I am in his profile, the third line, for those who don't know, is the trailblazer. And we learn through failing. And it can really look like, you know, we pick up a lot of things and drop them really quick. And there's so many components to it that I won't go into here. But for a kid, it can be really, really tough to be a third line because the world wants us to choose one. The world, you know, our parents don't understand how to encourage this type of an individual. And so they try to put them in a box. You know, parenting is the hardest job out there. So no, you know, no shame in any direction by any means. But at the same time, like um, for the relationship between parent and child, because I was a difficult and unique child, I know that if my parents had had that information, the relationship would have been so much better because they wanted to give to me. They wanted to do the right things for me, but they didn't know how. And of course, I was a kid and didn't know how to tell them what I needed. And but I think that, you know, this is really one of the next spaces that I want to be moving into, because I think that there's an opportunity here to really change the paradigm of parenting through human design. So don't want to get off on that too much, but definitely wanted to share that because that will certainly be coming in the near future. And I'm super excited about it. I had a tough childhood and my parents had it tough too. So yeah, I would love to, you know, those are the years that shape us. And so if we can be better equipped in those times, then we don't have to experience all of the pain. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, no, I certainly, you've shared that idea with me in the past, and I definitely am looking for you to incorporate that within your business, because I think it's such a need, and a need that people don't necessarily think about, but that I think can really make an impact and in the child's life, but also on the parent's life. And as that evolves, it can really help them connect even further. And and create more intimate relationships as a parent and as a child. So I cannot wait for you to incorporate that. Hopefully that will be this year. Who knows? Maybe next year. Yeah. So as we've been reflecting on your journey with the podcast, with your marketing business to the spiritual business, I just think that some of the members of your audience, some of your fans, may be interested in starting their own business or starting their own podcast. So I just think it might be cool for you to share maybe a few tips on what they can incorporate when they begin that journey, something that you've overcome or some lessons that you've learned that could benefit them if they decide to do that. What advice can you share with them?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously it's I think a really huge question, and there's so many different ways in which I could come at it. Um, the thing I would first say is that you want to get clear about what it is that you want to do. And one of the ways to get clear is to figure out what brings you joy. Figure out what really lights you up. You know, like you mentioned a bit ago when I was talking about the Akashic Records, how my face like lit up. And that's a really beautiful indicator that there's something there and there's something very special for me. So, in the midst of thinking about whether you want to create a business or do a podcast or anything like that, I think it's important to really get clear about what it is you want to focus on. What are some things that you really love? You know, make a list, and start stepping into some of those things. You know, like you can put a toe in the water. You can test something out. You can volunteer at a business if you're interested in building one that's similar. Um, you can talk to different podcasters and see what their experiences are. If you're curious about what it's like behind the mic, you can, there's so many different ways that you can educate yourself and start taking small steps out in the midst of that change. But I think it's really important to kind of get clear on what brings you joy, what really lights you up, because I believe that when you follow that, all things will come together. And it's not to say that journey won't be hard, and it's not to say that, you know, it's going to happen overnight, because none of that is true. That's true for a very, very few, but they inevitably have to deal with that at some point in time. Um, you know, deal with getting clear in regards to why they're doing what they want to do, if that's not something they know on the front end. But that would probably be the next step, you know, getting clear about what you want to do, think about why you want to do it, thinking about what purpose is this going to serve, you know, think about the life that you want to lead, think about the things that you want to do, the impact that you want to have. Understanding the why is so, it's such a crucial part of it. And really, I think that those two steps are pretty huge, you know. I would also suggest to put yourself around people who are doing what you want to do and get to know them, get to be around them. If you are smart, you will ask them to tag along. You will ask them to show you the ropes. You will ask them whatever the case may be. And so that you can start thinking about that and incorporating that. I had a client who, an Akashic reading, she is a famous chef, and she has started doing coaching on the side, and she loves it, but doesn't really know how to start doing it more, doesn't know how to kind of make that leap. You know, there's a lot of questions about what people might think, you know, all of these things, because she's always been known for this one thing. And, you know, what the records shared with her, was to start spending a lot of time around coaches, you know, and they showed me that, like, the more, like, her world is kind of currently, you know, built around this identity of being a chef. But if she starts spending more and more time around coaches, then the more and more time she starts spending, that will soon become her world. And before she realizes it, that will be something that she just naturally incorporates and steps into. You know, that those will be the people that she likes spending time with. Those will be the circles where she wants to be. Those are the things that she'll learn. And yeah, that's kind of what I would say, because in the midst of that, you can find a support system, which you are going to need. You know, community for any sort of an entrepreneur, anyone who wants to do something, you must have community so that you have a place to go and talk when it's tough, when you want to give up, when you hit a block, when you need help. If you don't have community, I mean, you know, there was several years back, there was this whole rash of like entrepreneurs who were committing suicide. And it was a really big discussion and a topic within the entrepreneurial community, because so many entrepreneurs at that time weren't open about the struggles of being an entrepreneur. And that's huge. We need those places, because then you think you're the only one and you think that you're alone, and you're not. You're not. This shit's hard, man. That's why everybody doesn't do it. You know, I mean, I've said more than one time, like, if I was employable, then I might have just become an employee. And that could have been great. Obviously, that is not my path. That's not even something that's really possible for me. The universe didn't want me having any of that. But, you know, this is not easy, but it's worth it. So get clear, figure out your why, get around people, find community. And honestly, if you got those three put together, then you're well on your way.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. I think all those are great pieces of advice that can definitely be helpful for anyone that's looking to start a new business. And also, I'm sure that they can come see you, because I'm sure the Akashic Records, human design, Reiki, all that can really help all these individuals as they begin that journey, and as they go through that journey, to kind of get more clarity with direction or understanding themselves. And apart from those three things, I wanted to ask you, how else can people work with you?
Yeah, so right now, I am primarily focusing on Akashic Record readings. I am doing human design readings. Um, I have put a pause on my Reiki sessions, only for you, babe.
Yeah, I was gonna say, make an exception for me. I need one
Yes,
ASAP.
yes, yes. And teaching, you know, I have several workshops. Of course, I'm teaching folks how to read the Akashic Records right now, but as I spoke about with the human design for the parents, I'm going to be launching an energy workshop here shortly. I'm going to be doing one in person on the 25th. I have several things that I want to teach and share and help folks, equip folks to handle these times and to be empowered on their own, because we are definitely stepping into a new paradigm. And while we are headed into something beautiful, everything that is here now must fall so that it can be rebuilt, so that it can be remade, so that there are equitable resources given out, so that love can reign once again. But I want, you know, I want to give in those times. I want to serve. And so that's where my main focus is at right now.
Cool. Well, that's very exciting stuff that people that you work with, your audience, can certainly look forward to. And what else can they look forward to specifically with this year, 2022? What's the vision looking like for both your podcast and your spiritual guide? What can people expect?
Yeah. So within my practice, I'm going to be launching an in-depth how to read the Akashic Records course called Access Your Akashic Soul. And I'm so pumped for it. It is something that's been coming together since the middle of last year. And it's the course that I would want to take. And because the Akashic Records can be very esoteric for folks, learning how to communicate with energy really takes time. This is going to be a course that is going to ensure that folks walk away feeling confident in the records on their own and can start doing, sessions for other people if they want, or whatever the case may be, however it is that they want to utilize it in their own life. But besides that, I've got other workshops that I've talked about. A lot of things coming this year that I don't want to talk about just yet, but the podcast, oh man, 2022. So some really exciting things. We've got incredible guests. They're going to be coming on the show this year. In addition, I am going to start publishing extra segments on Fridays. Actually, I think starting next week. And so these are going to be like mini sessions, and there's going to be all kinds of different segments. One of them is called Things I Love. Another one is going to be answering listener questions. There's just a number of different things that I'm going to be doing with the podcast this year that I'm really excited about, to start connecting with the listeners in a new way. But in addition to that, I am this Friday going to, I am starting, let me start over. This Friday, I am going to be popping up on YouTube every Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will be opening the records, channeling through a forecast message for the week ahead. And then attendees can ask questions, general questions, no personal questions, but general questions about maybe what's going on in the world or concepts that they would like to know more about. And I am really just going to kind of let this hour evolve into what it's meant to be. All I know is that my guides want me out in front, reading more publicly, sharing this, and helping folks find answers in different ways. So I'm just going to show up. We're going to see how it goes. And I'm really excited to start connecting with folks in different ways. So that's some of what is coming. We'll definitely be rebranding the podcast. So many things. So
cool. It sounds like 2022 has a lot of things that are going to be surprising people, that are going to be fun. And I'm definitely looking forward to all that. And I'm sure your audience is also looking forward to that.
yeah.
Are you excited for that?
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I want it all now. I want it all, like, someone please come take care of the details so I can just like click my hands. But what's really beautiful is that things don't happen immediately, because, where the podcast is at now, where my practice is at now, if my practice had, the work that I'm doing with clients, if I had been given the opportunities that I have now back in, early last year, February 2021, when I started offering readings, like I wouldn't have been ready. Everything works in perfect timing. I had growth to do. I had things to evolve through. Even this podcast. I mean, when I first started, like I used to write out, my episodes and read them. And I mean, I've just grown and evolved, and everything happens in our time. And it's really about the journey and not about getting to that place, because like I talked about with my agency, my marketing agency before, I've hit those huge places of achievement, and I've seen not only how minute they feel kind of in the moment, like, yeah, you might get excited, but then it's like, well, what now? You can have all the money in the bank, you can do those things, but it's really about the journey. And so I'm just excited for things to roll out as they are meant to roll out. And let's see how it goes. It'll be fun.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to continue seeing your podcasts and your spiritual practice continue to evolve, and just that you will continue to bring all this good that people really need it. So I cannot wait to see how everything evolves. And that is all I have for you in terms of my personal questions, but are you ready for the lightning round?
Do it.
All right. Lightning
I
round.
should have had you create your own lightning round since I already know these questions, but it's all good.
Yes,
All
true,
good.
true.
We should stick to the format because, I've had to ask other folks these questions and they're good. So,
Yeah, no, I enjoy them. I did include a new one, so that worked
uh-oh.
out, which is the
Uh-oh.
first one. So, what is one fun slash interesting fact about you that your audience may not know about you?
Oh man, I love freckles. And I used to beg Santa Claus every year to give me freckles. He never
Yeah.
did. But I eventually learned how to draw them on my own face. And now thanks to Instagram, I can use a filter and have freckles. So yeah, love freckles. I think they're beautiful.
Nice. Yeah. I love that you love freckles, especially because I have some freckles, so
Your freckles are cute.
makes you like me more.
Yeah.
All right. Next one is, what is the one habit you cannot live without?
Oh, praying, definitely. And when I say praying, I don't mean to put the gravity on that I feel like, I grew up in Christianity and in that sort of religion. So, but when I say praying, I really mean like connecting with God. I mean, my heart belongs to God. Like I'm nothing without my personal relationship to God. And when I pray, sometimes it's writing, and sometimes it's in the middle of when I'm sitting on the toilet going to the bathroom. I'm just like talking to God, and that's really what it's about. Is um, in whatever way it works for me. But I've always been so thankful throughout my life, all the ups and downs, that it was like no matter what I was going through, I could pray and always feel better when it was over. And there's just nothing more powerful to me than praying with like a full heart, your heart just really being in it. Some of my most profound spiritual experiences have been in the midst of crying, bawling, in in the hardest of times, really needing God. And yeah, if I didn't have that practice, I don't know what I would have been a mess, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's a really good one. It really, I'm sure that really helps to continue to have that relationship with God.
Yeah.
All right, next one is, what does spirituality mean for you?
Yeah, so I think that I love asking people this question. Um, Spirituality is such a like it's a pretty big word. It's become really trendy. It's become I feel like it's losing its meaning. But I also feel like the meaning evolves with someone on their spiritual journey. But in essence, at core, at roots, I believe spirituality is about coming home to ourselves, recognizing the God within all of us. We're all pieces of God. Um, we're all components of the divine. And when we are able to see that within ourselves and experience that within ourselves, life changes, life shifts, and we can forgive ourselves, we can forgive others. Like so many things happen from that. And so it's really about coming home to who we are.
Yeah, it's a great perspective. Next one is, what is your advice to anyone who's looking to find purpose?
Follow your joy. I am continuously shown on my own personal path with my clients and readings by the Akashic Records. I mean, like we underestimate, we come into this human experience and even so often within the spiritual community, like we take ourselves so seriously. We take this life journey so seriously. We want to achieve, we want to do things, we want to accomplish, and we got this to do and that to do and that to do. And like we forget that honestly, being human is supposed to be fun. We're supposed to enjoy ourselves. And anything that brings us back to that joy is connected to something important for us. So like I talked about with teaching, I mean, you know, I've shared this with you. It's like I can teach a large group of people for 2.5 hours and walk out and just be like so lit up I can barely sleep that night, right? Because I loved it. I love it. It fills me with so much joy. And so boom, that's a clue, right? So follow your joy. And if you aren't sure what lights you up, start paying attention and start trying new things. Because if you're always doing the same thing, trying to find the joy, trying to find your path, you're not going to find it. You got to be curious, you got to try different things, but pay attention to what lights you up and gets you really excited. And somewhere along that path, you'll fall into it.
I agree with all that. And last question, what is your favorite place to connect with people online? MySpace?
Oh, I miss MySpace so much. Oh,
The
love
Facebook?
having my playlist, my videos, my my photo slideshows. Yeah.
Your top 5 friends?
Oh man, you know that was like a love hate thing, right? Like, yeah, because my heart was broken if I popped out of someone else's. Favorite place to hang out online right now is you know, I've just kind of come back to social media. So I've been hanging out on Instagram, but Medium is really like it's a blogging platform for those who don't know. I love connecting with other writers, creators. It's such a warm environment. It was really a respite for me in the midst of taking such a huge break from social media. For those who don't know, I took about a 5-month break from social media, and so my assistant was still, you know, running the channels, but I was not there other than to potentially respond to someone or something of that nature. But I love Medium, and yeah, Instagram probably besides that. But I love hearing from people. So please send me an email. Like, let's get personal. soulsdrivenpodcast@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you because that way we can truly connect. So, yeah.
Cool. Okay, my love. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to play host today and interview you. I've definitely had a lot of fun playing this role. I'm sure you've had fun playing a role that you're not necessarily used to, but I am thankful also for everything that you do and this work that you do. I've personally benefited from it, and it has definitely helped me in my life. And I know you've been helping a lot of people in our community and just across the world with your spiritual practice, with the podcast. And I'm just super happy that you've continued to fight through and not give up. And I'm very proud of you for continuing to keep on keeping on and pushing through. So I'm excited for what's next.
Yay. I love you. Love you. Yeah, and I just thank you so much for sharing your time with us, for being a fantastic host. You did a great job. Well
Thank
done.
you.
High
Thank you.
five.
Thank you.
Feel like you got some
Virtual high five.
natural capabilities in this area. So we'll have to see how we might utilize that in the future.
Maybe I have a future in this podcast.
Well, you have, oh, I love your voice so much. I've shared that with you. Yeah, great voice, great voice. Ladies, he is taken. Okay, but enjoy the voice. All right, all right. Well, thank you all so much for being here. Thanks again to Carlos for being such a wonderful host. I hope that you have enjoyed this show, gotten to know a little bit more about the lady behind the mic. And again, I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you for continuing to support this podcast, for being a listener, for showing up, and for being a part of this community. It is such a blessing. And don't forget, when we invest in ourselves, the world benefits. Until next week.